what I want to do is a review of Get Out. Get Out. So first of all, that song is completely in my head ever since I've heard about this movie. But okay, so what I've made a list. It's going to help me stay on track and not have an amazingly long video, but I want to tell you like my thoughts about the movie. First of all, go see it. 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 It absolutely must see. I've heard that Peel has actually even made it so that the more you see it, or at least after the second time of you seeing it, that you see it like from a whole different light. You see this whole different perspective. And so I'm trying not to do any spoilers. I don't plan to spoil anything in this. I'm not going to tell you who came around the corner when, but I do want to talk about some of the concepts in the movie that really struck me. And once you know the concepts, sometimes you know even more than what you know if you knew who was coming around the corner. So anyway, take it or leave it. Here's my little list. Okay, so the movie, one, I have nuances of black culture. The movie covered a lot of nuances of black culture that made me feel like this movie was made for me, or at least for people who are concerned with bridging the gap. So I have this whole thing about everyone in America basically is conscious of race. I mean, we invented race, so we have some consciousness of it. And the only people who are not racist at all are definitely not people who've never even considered the thought that they're racist. They are people who work on it. They work on it day in and day out. And that's racist, ageist, sexist, you name it. The only way we are not that is if we work on it. We got to work on ourselves. So anyway, I found this movie had a lot of nuances of black culture. Certain things about the handshakes, the glazed over look when you see someone that looks like you and you go out of your effort to go talk to them, that kind of glazed over look. Yeah, that would be a red flag for me all day. Where, you know, anyway, staying on track. Also the fact that it was very, you know, I would say the female actress, the female lead actress who played the girlfriend, she talked about how my parents don't have a problem with the fact that you're black. Why would they have a problem with that? And that was kind of reinforced in word and in verbiage. But then when he got there and they had that party and everyone there was white, everyone around either worked for them, everyone black there either worked for them, or that's it, basically worked for them in some capacity, and that's their only knowledge of the culture and their only knowledge of these people. So that was very, to me, that was something that carried a lot of weight, that there were a lot of nuances of black culture, that it was like a second language. There's definitely layers to this movie, and I think layers of language. Okay, so back to my list. I don't feel a way about the British actor playing the part because he plays the game in America. He plays the game in Hollywood. I saw him when he did I saw his episode of Black Mirror. It was very strong, and he's almost void of too much race. I think that's the reason why David Oyelowo was chosen to do the 12 Years a Slave, because they're almost blank slates in terms of race, but still they feel the effects of it. So in other words, they don't have the years and years and years of either desensitization or, you know, just being beaten down by it. They don't have that, you know, or, you know, in some ways it doesn't seem they have that to the same level as someone who grew up in America, black culture. They kind of have to get past that. It's like a threshold you have to get past before you get to this level of consciousness that they seem to have been able to get to. I personally find people from over in the UK have a different level of consciousness and self-love, people of color. So anyway, next thing, ridiculous to think that you're better than someone else because of their race. I think that's ridiculous. It's an amazingly ridiculous notion, but I don't think the movie perpetuates hate. I just needed to say that. I also want to say I don't think the movie perpetuates hate. I don't think that it will make people want to go to war or be more angry again. It doesn't work like that. So the problem is that we're desensitized by racism. We're desensitized by racial slights. We're desensitized by slavery in a way. And so to talk about it would only bring a level of enlightenment. In the same way that 12 Years a Slave was like a visual journey into the horrors you've already pictured. So it was like a visual journey. And Birth of a Nation was an inspirational film. But my husband, who's African, was like, he's Nigerian. He's like, that's a sad movie. How can you watch that? And it was just interesting to me because I didn't see it as sad at all. I saw it as inspirational. So that means it's time for us to have the conversation. It's not, we're trying to be a post-race society, and the only way we can do that is if we, look at the fact that a lot of people, especially people who are supposedly at the underbelly of the society, have become desensitized by some of the worst parts of it. So now we can really have a real conversation. Anyway, we all understand powerlessness. And so this movie had a very strong theme about powerlessness. That's why I feel like it's really for everyone. We all understand it. It can happen to anyone. So I just feel like anyone who has felt like their arms are tied, has felt quieted or shushed, has felt unable to speak their true voice, would really resonate with the main character. Even though it was a horror movie, even though there was comedy and all these other things, I think that is something that's a universal, and maybe it's a reason why the movie is doing so well. There's also a big, strong message of appropriation in this movie, and I just want to say about that some appropriation is needed in order to move the society forward. We aren't going to be able to get past that. However, there's a certain amount of credit that needs to be given back. So Nicki Minaj appropriates Little Kim, and they're upset, and they kind of go to war about it. And she continues to do so. And the only thing that's needed is just some reverence and recognition. And so I think it's for us all to look at ways we appropriate other cultures without getting the full experience, without really digging deeper. Are we just ordering Indian food? Are we just ordering Chinese food? Or are we really trying to see where does it go? Where does the rabbit hole go? Okay. For lack of a better term. Okay, I only got a couple more, and I know I'm at 7 minutes, so I don't think I'm better or you're better. I don't think that I'm better because of my race. I don't think that you're better because of your race or your gender or your size or your frame. I don't think that. And I'm my favorite person. I don't know why you would have a list, let's say, for beauty, and you not be at the top of it. So really, that's the healing. Sometimes we get away from that, and we get in our mode where we're working on ourselves and everything. And then when we get into these self-hating conversations especially with the sisterhood, we can really go there. I think it's important to remember that I'm not going to have a list of beauty or intelligence that I don't find myself at the top of or working towards being at the top of, and so that's something important to remember. Representation is a big topic here. Just, this movie is about representation in a big way, and it's healing almost in the way that it addresses the elephant in the room. And I'm glad that the conversation's finally here. Yeah. Because if you aren't accommodating the full variety, then you are choosing not to have them represented, and you are telling them they are unwelcome, and so the same thing goes for a small firm that has, a 32 ratio on race, 30 Caucasians to black. It doesn't mean that black people haven't gone into the field. It doesn't mean that people aren't interested. It doesn't mean that they're unemployable. It just means you chose to have that culture perpetuate in your work environment, and that's fine. I'm just saying, own it. But in that same way, America wants to talk about immigration, and we're built on immigration, so there should not be a scenario where we want to shun immigrants. I understand the whole conversation about them being legal. I'm way off track. All I want to say is representation is important. Let's build a system that works for everyone and is accommodating to those that we want to have involved. And if you don't take that effort, it says you don't want to have them involved. Okay. We're in a generation of knowledge. No more cloaks and curtains. So we are post Wizard of Oz, and this movie speaks to that. People don't want to be awakened. Some people don't want to be awakened. And so anyone who doesn't see this movie, the real horror is for them to possibly have to deal with some stuff maybe they're not ready to deal with. And that's sad, but I think that it's a movie that will last for a long time. It carries a lot of weight. But we're not in this society where we can have this purely fictional movie. People want to have this purely fictional movie, not based on any reality. No, it's going to be based on reality because we're in a society of information all of a sudden. We aren't in cloaks and, the Wizard of Oz and the man behind the curtain. No, those days are gone. And I love it. And anyway, my only issue is that people will walk away feeling like Caucasians are the all-powerful. So there's this idea when people start to talk about Illuminati and they start to talk about governments and brotherhoods and things like that, they start to make a people or a group the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing. And I have a problem with that. I just don't think that is, I don't think that's progressive. And I'll say that if anyone comes away from this feeling even more in fear of Caucasians, or even more in fear of wealthy society or the elite society, because you could say this is a classist movie as well, then that's where the work is for you and for I and for all of us. Last point. It's a must-see for those working on their racism, and I've already kind of covered how important it is to work on your racism. Okay, thanks for watching. Go see the movie.